This is the story Whitney discovers it's possible. Whitney thought she'd seen most of the ways people built their lives. She was in her early 40s, a thoughtful wife, a caring mother of 2 teenagers, someone who tried to stay open-minded about the world. Even though she grew up in a small town, her years after college living in New York City, as well as visiting several countries around the world, had introduced her to people from all kinds of backgrounds and lifestyles. Her brother was gay, and she loved him dearly. And though she now lived in a suburban world in North Carolina, she still wasn't shocked very easily. So when she booked a simple 2-day outdoor adventure during a family trip to Tennessee, she certainly wasn't expecting to come across a type of relationship she had never even imagined before. But by the end of that week, she would find herself quietly realizing some relationships might be able to work in ways many people have not yet heard of. Whitney loved the outdoors. Her husband did too. Their kids had grown up often going on family hikes and vacations to national parks. So a trip to Chattanooga to explore that area during school break in the fall of 2023 wouldn't be anything out of the usual for them. While planning and browsing online for outdoor tourism companies in eastern Tennessee, she came across Tennooga Outdoor Adventures. Something about it grabbed her attention. The website showed pictures of bikers on forest trails, kayaks floating peacefully on sparkling lakes, and hikers smiling at gorgeous mountain overlooks. The reviews praised the guides. Knowledgeable, patient, and also professional, yet casual and fun. The company offered a 2-day hike and bike package. It seemed perfect. The plans were made, and a few weeks later, they packed up their SUV and hit the road for Chattanooga. It was a cool Saturday morning just after sunrise when they pulled into Tennooga's headquarters. The first person they met was Victor. He came out to greet everyone personally. Broad-shouldered, friendly, with clear, thoughtful eyes, his brown hair was peppered with some dignifying gray. He had the sort of steady presence that made you immediately trust him. "Welcome," he said warmly, shaking hands. "I'm Victor. Are you all ready for a great day? I'll be stuck at the office here today, unfortunately. But fortunately for you, my friends Nick and Liam will be out guiding you on your adventures." He gestured towards the men loading up the vans. "You'll be in good hands." Liam was easy to spot. A British man with a sly, understated sense of humor. He was in his early 30s, tall and athletic, with wind-tousled hair and the look of someone who spent a lot of his life outdoors. Then there was Nick. Shorter, a little older, wavy dark hair and a handsome, genuine grin. Friendly, but more reserved than Liam. Whitney noticed something almost immediately. The 2 men moved around each other with a quiet rhythm as they loaded bikes and gear into the van, passing equipment, adjusting straps, anticipating the next step. Sometimes they barely spoke, just a nod here or a quick glance there, the sort of rhythm people develop when they've really learned to understand each other. After everyone settled into the van, the ride to the trailhead was relaxed. Liam started off with a teasing introduction to the passengers. "Hello, everyone. If we haven't met yet, I'm Liam. Since I'm driving today, please yell at me if I start drifting to the left. In civilized countries like England, where I'm from, they drive over there on the proper side of the road." Nick looked at the passengers and rolled his eyes, clearly a familiar joke. Whitney noticed the guide's interactions, then glanced at her husband and gave him a look that said, "Those 2 are not just coworkers." He gave a small, maybe, shrug in reply. Liam drove on, telling stories about growing up in England and eventually discovering Appalachia and feeling magnetically pulled to the area. Nick kept smiling and playing along with Liam's banter, while also sharing interesting facts with everyone about the forests and mountains as they were driving through. Once they arrived at the trailhead parking lot, the bikes were quickly unloaded and adjusted while helmets were passed out. The seamless teamwork started everyone's adventure off without delay, which Whitney noticed and appreciated. Later during lunch, Nick laid out a beautifully prepared picnic. Liam looked at the spread and said dramatically, "Nick, this is absolutely fabulous." That settled it. Whitney looked at her husband. He easily read her smirk. "I called it." His smile answered, "You probably did." The rest of the day went exactly the way Whitney hoped. Beautiful trails, scenic viewpoints, her family laughing and happily biking through the woods together. That evening back at the hotel, everyone was happy and exhausted, but still excited for more. Whitney thought briefly about the guides while getting ready for bed. If Liam and Nick were a couple, it wasn't surprising, and it wasn't a big deal. If anything, their relaxed connection had made the whole experience better, and that was exactly what she had wanted from the trip. The next morning, they returned to Tennooga. Victor was there again, but this time he was standing with another guide, Kip, who hadn't been there yesterday. Kip had short, sandy blonde hair, bright eyes, and the unmistakable energy of someone who enjoyed making people laugh. Within minutes, he was juggling apples for the kids. Definitely the class clown. She also noticed Nick wasn't around and asked Liam about it. "Nick's working at the nursery in town today," Liam explained. "He helps out there sometimes too." Then he nodded toward Kip, who had given one of the apples a face, complete with a moving mouth, and was now doing a ventriloquist act for the kids. "We'll have Kip with us today. In case you haven't noticed yet, he'll make sure everyone has a good time." Before getting into the van, Whitney stepped back and looked around, and she noticed something. The way Victor put his hand on Kip's shoulder, the way Kip handed Liam a clipboard without looking, the quick grin Liam and Victor exchanged. There was a familiarity there, not just coworkers, something else, but she couldn't quite figure out what. That morning in the van, she didn't have time to think much more about it on the ride to the trailhead, with Liam and Kip's nonstop joking, keeping everyone entertained. Once again, as they arrived at the trailhead, the van was quickly unloaded, and final preparations went like a well-oiled machine. Soon they were exploring sun-speckled hiking trails winding through the tree-covered mountains. Later that day, after a short break to admire a view of the river, Whitney waited a little as the rest of the hikers got back on the trail. She let the rest of the group walk ahead until she and Liam were a little separated from the others. After a few quiet moments, she said, "I hope you don't mind me asking something a little personal." Liam smiled. He sensed from her energy what she was wondering about, and knew that he didn't need to worry about hostility, just curiosity. He replied, "That usually means the question will be interesting." She laughed. "Yesterday, I started thinking you and Nick might be a couple. But today, watching you and Kip work together, and seeing you this morning with Victor," she hesitated, "there's just a lot of natural chemistry between you guys." She looked at him curiously. "Do you all just really love your jobs, or is there something more?" Liam chuckled. "Well," he said, "your instincts are pointing in the right direction." He paused for a moment to consider which way to answer her. He sensed simplicity would be best, and went on. "This might sound odd, but we are all in a relationship together, along with 3 other guys." Whitney stood there a few moments and blinked as her brain scrambled to catch up. "So wait, you and Kip are together?" "Yes." "And you and Nick?" "Yeah." "And Victor in the office?" "Also yes." "And 3 more guys?" "That's right. We're all together in a type of group relationship." Whitney stared at him. "That's 7? 7 of you?" Her jaw dropped open. "Yes, 7 of us." "All of you are in a relationship with each other?" "Correct." "Wow, I've never heard of anything like that. A relationship with 7 guys? And you all work together?" "For the most part, yes." "Do you all live together?" She backed off, quickly realizing she might be getting a little too personal. He humored her. "Actually, yes, we do. Our home can be quite a busy place." Whitney laughed in disbelief. "That does sound complicated." Liam just smiled. He gestured for them to start walking again. "We know it's unusual," he said. "It's not exactly something we put on the front page of our brochures, but it's not something we hide either." He glanced towards the rest of the hikers. "But if you're curious, I can explain more later." Then he grinned. "Right now, it looks like your kids have no problem leaving you behind for the wolves." Whitney turned. Her husband and son were already halfway up the next hill. And even farther ahead, her daughter and Kip were laughing together. She confirmed, "Yes, I like that explanation." And they hurried to catch up. Later that afternoon, back at Tennooga headquarters, while her kids were browsing souvenirs and her husband looked at the brochures for other local businesses, Whitney found Liam and Victor near the office porch. "So," Whitney said, smiling, "about that explanation." Victor glanced at Liam. Liam grinned. She figured out our little 7-man secret. Victor laughed. Well then, go ahead. Liam picked up from their earlier chat. So yeah, there are 7 of us that have been together for several years now, Liam said. Some of the guys were together even a few years before that. I'm actually one of the newer chaps. They were pioneers, and we've heard of other similar groups forming in the last few years. Whitney listened carefully. We call it a gay group relationship, he continued. It's not separate couples, it's one relationship shared by all of us. Victor added, think of it like a team or a chosen family. She considered that for a moment. She had friends and neighbors with large families. Maybe it wasn't as complicated as she initially thought. Liam continued, a lot of us found that traditional monogamous relationships didn't really fit, but we also didn't want the chaos of open relationships or endless short-term boyfriends, or to be single and alone. So we built something different. No entrenched hierarchy, Liam explained. No boss making the decisions for everyone. Whitney looked at them both. How do you handle so many schedules and opinions? Victor answered calmly. We found it helps if it's structured. We do weekly check-ins. We talk through problems as early as possible. We share responsibilities, and we respect each other's priorities. The same principles that are important in any relationship. And the last few years we've been lucky. We have Tennooga here, and also run a nursery in town. So those give us some flexibility. And since moving to our homestead a few years ago, we've had a place where we can all be together. But even with all that, he said, we often remind ourselves that the commitment is to the whole group. Liam added, speaking of being all together, one thing I appreciate about our home and our group is that we respect when any of us need some alone time, which is different amounts for each of us. But as Victor said, it's about the whole. We're not competing to be someone's number one, which completely changes everything. Whitney thought about that. And it actually works? Victor nodded. We've had challenges, jealousy, figuring out logistics. Early on, there were many wrinkles to smooth out, and we're always adapting. But we chose this intentionally, and we keep choosing it. Whitney was quiet for a moment. My brother is gay, she said finally. He's a good guy, but he's the type you mentioned before, where he's had several relationships that never seem to last long, she sighed. He always ends up feeling ignored, or smothered, or totally misunderstood. She looked at them. I wish he had something like this, a support system. Liam's voice softened. That's part of why we do it. It's not just romance. It's shared life. Victor smiled. I can't speak for your brother. A group relationship is not for every gay man. But for those who want it and are willing to put in the effort. He paused. Well, someone once nicknamed our group, It'sPossible. And we adopted that name because we found that it is possible. Whitney noticed the phrase, it's possible. Victor nodded. Just then, her daughter ran over. Mom, Kip needs to close the gift shop now. Do you want to pick up any souvenirs before we pay? And so Whitney thanked them for explaining and joined her family again. A few minutes later, with the sun sitting low in the western sky, they exchanged thank yous once again and said their goodbyes. Soon after getting back on the road to North Carolina, Whitney's daughter said from the back seat, Mom, Dad, thanks for the trip. That was fun. And those guys from Tennooga were great. Whitney smiled. You're welcome, honey. I had fun too. And yeah, those guys were great. And interesting. She glanced at her husband with a look that said, very interesting. I'll explain later. As the miles passed, Whitney kept thinking about the weekend. About the forest trails, the river views, and the 7 men back in Chattanooga. She found herself thinking about the possibilities she had never thought to consider before, and how all relationships, simple or complex, are built on the same ideas. She wondered if a gay group relationship was something her brother had considered, or if it would be a new idea to him as well. But somewhere in those Tennessee hills, 7 men were steadily building a life together in a way most people had never imagined. And Whitney had the feeling that what she had glimpsed that weekend was only the surface of a much deeper story.